So what's up, guys? This is a video course that I made for Skillshare. Initially, I tried to upload it, but apparently it went against their guidelines on dieting. You can't teach people how to diet and stuff like that. Even though if you look up on Skillshare, there's over 300 courses on fitness-related things. And so I decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm putting it out for free. I made the course already. So it's a complete training on how to properly diet, and how to lose the weight, and how to keep it off forever. It's about 50 minutes long. I'm going to be mentioning like homework assignments and shit like that, because it was, you need homework assignments for Skillshare. Just ignore that part, but just watch for the content. I'm putting it out for free for you guys because, fuck it. Yes, hope you guys enjoy. Hope you guys learn a few things, and peace.
Fitness has been a part of me since I was 14 years old. I did track in middle school, then got into body weight training, to bodybuilding, to now my passion, powerlifting. I've always been obsessed with fitness. However, there's always one thing that I've always wanted since I embarked on my fitness journey, which was to lose fat, to have abs. So I did what most people did to get abs, which is to cut out carbs, eat chicken and veggies, only drink water, and did lots and lots of cardio. After long workouts, skipping meals, chugging water to fight my hunger, and doing cardio until my shirt was soaked, I managed to get abs. But I was miserable. I was always hungry, which led me to feeling really moody. I couldn't go out with friends. I felt I was being locked up and being healthy 24/7. Whereas yet, it wasn't sustainable. After losing all that weight, I would go back on a eating binge for weeks. I would feel guilty about what I just did, get depressed, and try to go back on track for a week, only to fail again and begin an unhealthy eating habit. And so after 3 months of hard work, there I was back again to where I started. Back to being unhealthy and back to being fat. It took me over 2 years to get out of that toxic trap. And after my horrible experience with dieting, I decided to learn how to properly diet. I got down to the science and tested it and repeated it 3 more times, and each time I did it, it got easier and easier. Over time, I built a blueprint that guaranteed I would lose the weight each and every single time. It was something no one really talked about. I was no longer binging, and better yet, my relationship with food became healthier. I even ate ice cream, brownies, and cookies, and still lost weight. I would share my results online, and people would flock to me for advice on how they could do the same. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Dara Khan. I'm a college senior studying biochemistry and molecular biology. I have been training consistently now for almost 8 years. I compete in powerlifting at 75 kilos or 165 pounds, and so far I've won 2 of the 3 competitions that I competed at. And in this course, I'm going to teach you guys how to lose fat effectively, how to maintain that fat loss, and how to live a sustainable, healthy lifestyle through dieting. And for some credibility on know what I'm talking about, here's some photos that I've done before and afters of the diets. I've done this multiple times, so I believe that I have the foundation and the knowledge to teach you guys on how to do the same. And I'm not going to teach you guys a specific diet to go on. This is not a keto diet or paleo or vegan or low carb. It's not that type of course. I'm going to teach you guys the foundations. It's going to be like a framework that you can apply to all type of diets to lose fat, so it will best fit your lifestyle. So if that sounds good to you and that's something you're interested in, please join the class and let's take your body to the next level. Before I begin teaching you guys on how to do this, let's first talk about why should we even care about fat loss. And ultimately, fat loss has a lot of benefits. Losing fat have shown to increase longevity, decrease risk in cardiovascular diseases, decrease risk in cancer, decrease risk in type 2 diabetes, improve quality of life, and most importantly, you look sexier. And as well, it has a ton of psychological benefits, right? And what I mean by when you look sexier, right? Physically, you will look better, but when you look at yourself in the mirror and you see that you look better, you feel more confident, right? And so you carry yourself a different way. You walk differently. You approach yourself differently. You talk to someone, to people differently, right? And so overall, it has a major improvement to your life. And so losing fat in general is extremely beneficial. And you guys know why you're here. You guys know why you want to watch this course, to learn how to lose fat, right? Maybe you want to feel more confident, right? Maybe you want to get healthier. Maybe you want to live long enough for your child, right? There's a lot of many reasons that people want to lose fat and have an overall better life. And so that's the reason why we should care about fat loss. Here's the hard truth. There is not a single best diet. Simply put, the human physiology is too complex and too unique individual by individual to conclusively say one diet is best. So if you look at social media or any type of marketing scheme where they will say this is the best diet, you should follow this keto plan, you should follow this vegan diet, you should follow this, and that, right? Don't believe them. There's no one best diet. The best diet is a diet that you yourself individually can sustainably go on for the rest of your life. Meaning, if you were to pick one diet, what diet would you choose to eat forever? That is the best diet for you. One of the reasons why I hate, the term the best diet is because most diet, when people go on, cause them to go on a yo-yo dieting. Now, what is yo-yo dieting? Yo-yo dieting is essentially you going through periods or patterns of fat loss, regaining the weight, fat loss, regaining the weight, and fat loss again, and over and over and over again. A cycle of gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight. It's an unhealthy eating habit to develop. It's an unhealthy diet habit to develop. And worst of all, you're not really keeping the weight off. You're just losing the weight and then regaining it back. And what's worse about the constant pattern of weight loss is that it puts your body through a defense system. And what that means is that when your body recognizes that you're constantly losing weight, it knows that you're going through periods of starvations or famine. The next time you gain the weight back, you go back to your eating habit, it's gonna try to store more fat than it needs because it anticipates that you're gonna lose the weight again. And so your body wants to store as much fat as possible. It's gonna try to, develop new fat cells to try to compensate for the next famine or for your next weight loss. And so in turn, when you are yo-yo dieting, you're actually making yourself gain more weight after you regain the weight. You might have more fat than you initially started with. And so I'm gonna put up some illustrations and some graphics to kind of give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. And so in the first diagram, you see that the before through the after, you see that through the diet, they lose the weight. Now, when they yo-yo diet, aka they go back to their old eating habit, they regain back the weight. And so they're storing more fat. That's why that individual in the after looks a lot bigger than the before. Figure number 3 here with the rats. This is a summary of a yo-yo dieting study performed by Brownlow and colleagues where rats regain weight post-diet twice as fast as they lost it. During the second cycle of caloric restriction, they lost it at half the original rate despite consuming the same calories. During the second regain phase, they regain weight 3 times as fast than the original rate. And so this illustrates the consequence of yo-yo dieting, right? You actually force your body to store more fat than it needs to because you're not sustainably keeping the weight off. You're making your body think you're going through periods of famines and periods of starvations, that it's going into survival mode in order to preserve as much fat as possible. If you look at the third diagram here, these circles here are representations of fat cells. In the pre-diet, you notice that the fat cells are much bigger, and so when you lose the fat cells don't actually die, they actually just shrink or increase in size as you gain or lose weight. And so as you lose weight, the fat cell will shrink, and so when you go back to eating, you might develop new fat cells. And when you develop new fat cells, when you regain, you actually gain more fat. And now you can see as the transition goes on through you eating more food, you gain more fat cells than you initially started with the pre-diet. Again, this is another consequence of yo-yo dieting. You end up making new fat cells, and like I mentioned before, fat cells don't die, they just shrink in size. If you develop new fat cells, now you're more likely to store more fat. This is why it's important that you develop a healthy eating habit, a foundation, a framework on how to properly keep that weight off after you lose the weight as well. So now your next question is, what should I do? How can I sustainably keep the fat off, and how should I approach fat loss? And what I want to teach you guys is how to calculate your calories and how to track it. For some of you, this may sound stressful and something that's hard to do, and you may not want to do it. I want to emphasize that the only way for you to understand how your body works and how to maintain fat loss and how to lose fat effectively is through counting your calories. With that being said, there are ways to ease into it, right? I recommend you just getting a notepad or a notebook, whatever, or even your notes app on your phone, and just log in the foods you eat every day. So for example, if you're eating a plate of steak, potatoes, and asparagus, for example, you just simply write steak, potatoes, and asparagus. And then maybe you record your daily weight, right? And over time, you will look, your log and see how specific foods will affect your weight. And then from there, you can adjust the type of foods you eat. You might add or subtract different things in order to control your weight in the way you want it to. Another easy way to do this is just simply taking a picture of your food. And then from there, ideally, we want you to start getting an app, which I'm going to show you guys how to set up and everything, to start actually measuring your food and even using a food scale to weigh out your food to get your best precise measurement as possible. Now, I want to talk about why you should track your food. Reason number 1 why you should track your calories is that it gets rid of the black and white or the binary options of a clean food or a dirty food. When we think about food, right, and in terms of dieting, there are generally good foods and bad foods, right, and usually in the diet community, right? They talk about don't eat your fast food, make sure you eat whole foods, chicken, broccoli, potatoes, whatever. And generally those are good advice. However, if you understand how many calories you should be consuming each and every single day, then you can start fitting in different type of foods that you want to eat, and therefore making it more sustainable, right? Because when we start restricting food from our bodies or from our diets, we tend to crave them, right? And that's why we see a lot of people go on cheat meals, go off their diet because they cheat on their diet. If you understand how many calories you can eat in a day, you can probably fit in the foods you love into those calories. It will be much more sustainable that way and a much more healthier way to diet. Reason number 2 is that it takes into account social, religion, and cultural aspects. Again, when we go on a diet, we tend to cut out a lot of things, right? We can't fit into our diet. But if you're tracking your calories, again, like I previously mentioned in point number 1, is that you can fit any type of foods you want. And so when you go out to eat with friends, for example, you can reserve calories for a night out with your friends, right? So you're not depriving yourself of social events. In cultural events, for example, if you have a specific food that you love to eat, grew up with, then you can eat that as well. And so it takes into account all these things. Reason number 3 is that you start to understand how many calories are in specific foods. When you start tracking your calories and weighing out your food, over time, you will develop an intuition. When you look at a piece of chicken or a bowl of chicken or a steak or a potato or rice, whatever, a bowl of rice, you can have an estimate of how many calories are in a specific type of food. And this is a great skill to develop, as it teaches you to self-regulate yourself on how much you can eat or how much you should eat, rather than saying, I'm just gonna eat it and I don't really care, right? That way you develop a much healthier relationship with food, and you can understand what's going into your body as well. You know, most of the time we let food control us, dictate us. But now, by tracking our calories and learning how many calories are in specific foods, over time we can start taking control back from food and kind of be more mindful of the type of foods we're putting in and how many calories we're consuming. So to understand why I meant that counting your calories is a framework or a foundation that can be applied to any type of diet, it's because calories is a unit of energy. And so it doesn't matter what type of diet you're on, whether you're a carnivore, keto, vegan, paleo, right? A calorie will always be a calorie. And so the type of foods you eat won't matter. And as long as you learn the foundations on how to control your calories in and out, then you will be able to control how your body reacts to it. But first, let's understand the concept of calorie in and calorie out. If I were to give a definition on how to lose weight, all you have to do is burn more calories than you are consuming. If you are burning more calories, putting calories out, than you are putting calories in, your body will utilize what it needs to in order to function, right? In order to bring it back to maintenance. And what it's gonna utilize is fat. Fat is your stored energy. When we eat below our maintenance, we start to lose fat because it forces our body to tap into the fat stores to utilize it as energy, to replenish the calories that we lack to put in. Vice versa, if we were to eat more calories than we burn, then we will gain weight, right? Because if we put in more calories than we need, than our body needs, what it's going to do is try to store the fat for later on to use in periods such as a caloric deficit. This is just a simple illustration to further illustrate my point. To gain weight, all you have to do is eat more calories than your body is burning. And to lose weight, all you have to do is burn more calories than you're consuming. And so once you understand this concept, it will open the doors for you to fully understand how your body works and how calories affect our body weight. So now, welcome to the juicy part. This is where we're gonna start learning how to calculate our calories. Up on the screen, I put 2 equations, one for men and one for women. So all you're doing is just inputting everything into the equation. So for body weight, we're gonna use kilos. If you don't know how to calculate kilos, just take your body in pounds and divide that by 2.2. For height, we're gonna take that in centimeters. For age, is regular age. And then from there, it's gonna equate to your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, which is the number of calories you would burn if you were to literally do nothing and were on bed rest. So for females, the same thing, just different numbers. Once you have calculated your BMR, you're gonna take that BMR and multiply it by the activity factor here that I put up on the screen. Most of you guys who are watching this will fall at the moderate activity, which is 1.55. Obviously, some of you guys might have different activity levels. Read the description, but generally, most of you guys will fall in the moderate activity. So from there, you're gonna take your BMR and multiply that by your activity factor. Now, this number that you just calculated is your caloric maintenance. What a caloric maintenance is, it sounds as it is essentially the number of calories you would need to eat in order to not gain weight or lose weight, right? It's the number of calories you need to eat in order to maintain your body weight. Caloric maintenance. Now, I do want to specify that the numbers that we just calculated for your caloric maintenance is not extremely accurate. Again, this is just an estimate. The only true way to find your caloric maintenance is to eat at that calorie you just calculated, weigh yourself every single day and see if you maintain that weight, right? The only way to truly know if you're maintaining weight at that calories is to weigh yourself and see if you weigh the same thing every single day. I would recommend, if you do want to truly calculate your caloric maintenance, is to take that calories and go ahead and weigh yourself maybe for 2 weeks straight and see if you maintain the weight. If you do, that is your true caloric maintenance. From there, I'm going to explain 2 more terms for you guys, and that is caloric deficit and caloric surplus. What a caloric deficit is essentially eating below your caloric maintenance. Depending on how severe your caloric deficit is or how less you eat from your caloric maintenance will determine how much weight you will lose. Caloric surplus is opposite of a caloric deficit, is you eat above your caloric maintenance. And again, depending on how much you eat above your caloric maintenance will determine how much weight you will gain over time. And because this course is about fat loss, we're going to be mainly focusing on a caloric deficit. Now, this is going to be different from everybody, right? If you have more fat to lose or you have less fat to lose will determine how fast your fat loss journey should be. Now, with that being said, generally, if you're not really overweight, if you just have maybe 20 pounds to lose or so, then I recommend only eating 500 calories less than your caloric maintenance. That should guarantee you to lose 1 pound a week. Now, this is generally the most healthiest way you should go about it. And so the reason why you should lose weight gradually instead of rapidly is because your metabolism will adapt. And the reason why that is important is that over time, as you are in a caloric deficit, your body will adapt to that calorie that you're putting into your body. And the reason why it does that, again, it goes back to your body survival mechanism. It wants to maintain that body weight, it wants to maintain that fat. And so over time, as you're in a caloric deficit, your metabolism will slow down and down and down, eventually to the point where you would stop losing weight at that caloric deficit. And so in order to continue weight loss, you must reduce the calories even further from your caloric deficit. Therefore, it's advantageous that you leave some room, some calories, so you can cut into as your metabolism adapts. For example, let's say two people who have the same stats in terms of height, weight, activity level are both dieting. They are trying to lose fat. Let's say person A starts at 2,000 calories. They will lose weight more gradually, whereas person B wants to do a much more severe rapid fat loss at 1,500 calories. Now, let's say both of their metabolism slow down and adapt to their deficits. And in order to continue losing weight, both must cut down calories. Let's say both reduce their calories by 200 calories. Now, person A will eat at 1,800 and person B will eat at 1,300. Which one do you think is much more sustainable? It will be A, because they're eating at 1,800. They had room for the caloric deficit to be further cut down. Person B was already at a severely low caloric deficit. Cutting down even further makes it even much more harder, much more unsustainable to continue the diet, which is why it's advantageous that you do a much more gradual fat loss rather than go into a period of a severe deficit. Now, if you're much more on the heavier side and you have a lot more fat to lose, then I would recommend you do go through a much more severe deficit. And the reason why I recommend this is because your body already contains so much energy. But for the general average individual who just want to lose maybe 30 to 20 pounds, a pound a week to maybe 1.5 pound a week is good. I recommend no more than cutting down 1,000 calories from your maintenance. So for your first homework assignment, what I want you guys to do is to calculate your caloric maintenance and then subtract 500 calories from your caloric maintenance. And then I want you guys to post that on the assignment board and share with everybody what your caloric maintenance is. Now that you have your caloric deficit and the number of calories you need to eat per day, let's start calculating your protein intake. But first, let's talk about why we even care about the protein intake. There are 3 macronutrients that make up food. There are carbs, fat, and proteins. Fiber counts too, but fiber is a form of a carb. Out of all the 3 macronutrients, proteins is the most thermogenic, meaning it requires more energy to break down the macronutrients in order to utilize it, right? So compared to carbs and fats, they break down a lot faster, much more easier compared to proteins. And as well, it's important that you consume the proper amount of protein on a daily basis. Proteins is one of the most important macronutrients we need. It helps build our muscle. It provides amino acids for our cells in order to function, and it keeps us full. When you're on a diet, you're restricting yourself from specific foods you're intaking. And so it's advantageous that you consume majority of your calories through proteins so you can feel much more satiated. As well, if you are weightlifting or you're training, going on a caloric deficit in a prolonged deficit, you can potentially lose muscle. And so in order to kind of help prevent that or minimize muscle loss, you should be consuming a lot of protein so it can help you rebuild the muscle. Okay, now that you guys know why we should start tracking proteins, how do I calculate how much protein I should be eating every single day? For the general rule of thumb, you should be consuming 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you're using kilos for your body weight, simply take your weight in kilos. So for example, 75 kilos, multiply that by 2.2, you would get 165 pounds. So you should be consuming around 165 grams of protein every single day. I'm gonna take this further and recommend that you consume a little bit more than what I just told you guys because you're in a caloric deficit. If you were eating at a caloric maintenance or a caloric surplus, then generally 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight should be suffice. But because you're in a caloric deficit, I recommend maybe eating around an extra 10 to 20 grams on top of what I just explained to you guys. So for example, I'm 165 pounds. If I were to go on a diet, instead of eating just 165 grams of protein every single day, I would aim around 175 to 185 grams of protein on a daily basis. Cool. Now that you have your caloric deficit and the number of protein you should be eating a day, how do you go about tracking that? Simple. I want you guys go into the App Store and download the app MyFitnessPal. From there, I'm gonna have you guys, register an account, set it all up. It's pretty simple. Just follow the instructions. And then from there, once you have make an account and everything, you're gonna go ahead. This is what it's gonna look like. You're gonna go ahead and click on more on the bottom right corner. You can click on goals, and then what you're gonna do is then click on nutrition goals. Under calories, carbs, proteins, and fat goals, click on that, and then in calories, enter your caloric deficit. And then from there, you can click on proteins, right? And then you're going to change the percentage until it gets around where your generally is. It's not going to be accurate unless you pay for the premium, which I don't recommend you guys doing. It doesn't really matter. Go somewhere around it. So again, I'm putting around 188 grams of protein right here. Click hit the arrow, get out, and boom, you're ready to start logging your food through the app. Cool. Now that you guys have everything set up, what I want you guys to do is first go to the link below and buy a food scale and start weighing out your food. Now, before you guys start the diet, what I want you guys to do is take maybe a week or two and just weigh out the foods that you eat every single day and just log it in onto your app. Let's say you have eggs and bacon every morning. Let's say you have 2 eggs, log in 2 eggs. You have 3 bacons, log in 3 bacon slices. Cool, that's breakfast. Lunch, potatoes and steak, put that in there, and weigh out your steak too. See, and weigh that in grams. Generally, if you just look up steak on MyFitnessPal, click on the first thing that you see, change the unit to grams, weigh it out and put in how many grams the steak is, and do that for maybe a week or two. And then from there, you'll see how many calories you're consuming on a daily basis. Now, what's cool about MyFitnessPal is that when you click on add foods, you can click on scan a barcode, and what you're gonna do is then you can find the food packaging that you have, scan it, and it will actually pull up the exact whatever food that you're eating at that point. So if it's like a box of cereal, it will pull up the macronutrients and the calories for that box of cereal, and then from there you can start weighing out your food with the food scale. Change the unit, make sure it's always in grams. Let's keep the units always consistent with one another, and then from there you can start easily tracking your food and the type of foods you're eating. So to see how many grams of protein you're consuming each and every single day, what you're going to do here is then click on diary in the food log, and you're going to scroll all the way down and click on nutrition. And the first thing you'll see is proteins, and it will actually track how much grams of protein you are consuming every single day. Here, for example, today, or actually for tomorrow, I've already logged in my food for tomorrow, I am going to be able to consume 200 grams of protein. And so that's how you're able to keep track of how much proteins you are consuming. As well, it breaks down the number of carbs, fiber, sugar, fat, saturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, monounsaturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, sodium, potassium, vitamin A, C, calcium, and iron. Generally, I only focus on the protein and making sure I'm within my calories. This is what this course is all about anyway, so I recommend you guys to do that as well. This video is going to briefly talk about what type of food you should weigh and what you shouldn't. As well, what you should track and what you shouldn't. So, if it's just a 0-calorie drink, like a zero Coke, or a black coffee with no cream, no sugar, anything like that, don't track it. If it's 0 calories, there's no point in tracking it. If it has calories, track it, right? It's that simple. For foods that you should weigh, I would generally weigh out meats or liquid things that has calories, for example, like egg whites or milk. But you shouldn't weigh out a piece of bread, for example. If it's on the label, it says one piece of bread is like 120 calories, then put in 120 calories. Or like I mentioned before, you can just scan the barcode and it will input it for you and just change how much bread you're eating, for example, if you were to track bread. For weighing out meats, I want you guys to make sure you're weighing out the meat before you cook it. So weigh out the meat uncooked first and enter that into your calories. And the reason why I say this is because when you cook the meat, you're actually not weighing the proper amount that you're consuming, because meat will shrink down and it's not the actual number of calories you're eating. So make sure you always weigh out the meat uncooked before you cook them. Another general thing that I don't typically track, if it's like a little bit of vegetable, because vegetables are usually extremely low in calories. So if you're eating a piece of lettuce in a sandwich, for example, I'm not going to track that. You probably shouldn't track that. It's probably like 3 calories, right? So it's so negligible that it's not even important for you to track. However, if you're eating a whole bowl of salad and you're using a whole head of lettuce, track the lettuce. I'm talking about things that are extremely small in volume that does not have that much calories, that it makes it negligible to track. And things like this will become much more easier and much more familiar with you as you continue to track on a daily basis. And so these are just general guidelines of what you should track and what you should weigh and what you shouldn't weigh. When it comes to weighing yourself, I recommend you either weigh yourself on a daily basis or just weekly basis. And the reason why I say this is because your body weight will fluctuate day to day. And it's, sometimes due to the type of food you're eating. Maybe you have a much more higher fiber day yesterday, and so you retain more water. And so the next day you might gain a little bit more weight. And I don't want you guys to obsess over your daily weight, because that's not truly what we're measuring here. As I recommend you guys lose about a pound a week. You should be seeing that you're decreased by a pound a week each week, right? And so you shouldn't be expecting to lose a pound every single day. That's really unrealistic and really unhealthy if you are doing that. With that being said, I do want to warn you guys that when you go on your first caloric deficit, the first week, you will lose generally maybe 3 to 5 pounds that week. And that's because it's just water, okay? The first week, you will lose a lot more weight than usual, and it's generally water, okay? Keep that in mind. It's just water, or most of it's going to be water, maybe a pound of fat, right? From the second week, and so on, you will see, your weight decrease by a pound, maybe a pound, 1.2 pounds each week, right? Assuming you're eating 500 calories less than your caloric maintenance. I track my weight daily. I will provide a spreadsheet if you guys want to utilize it, where you will enter your weight on a daily basis, and it will calculate your weekly average, and it will have a graph where it'll kind of show you or give you an illustration of your weight decreasing gradually, assuming you stay on a caloric deficit. So it's kind of give you guys some motivation to see that number drop on the scale as well. If you guys want a weight scale that I use, I will provide that also with the food scale in the link below or in the description. And so yeah, that is what I recommend in terms of weighing yourself. Another thing I recommend you guys doing is taking progress photos. You can do this week to week, or if you've seen those transformation videos where they do every single day. If you're that tedious about it, go ahead. I typically just do a week by week basis and just compare photos week by week to see my body change week by week. Again, that's just another motivation type thing for you to have, to see your body change. That can keep motivating you and keep you moving forward with the diet. Now, your next concern is, what type of foods should I eat? Again, because you're tracking your calories, it's really up to you. Aim to hit your protein and your calories, and then you're all set. It doesn't matter what you eat. I just want to add that my point of saying you shouldn't eat whatever you want. Yes, you can eat whatever you want as long as it's within your calories and you hit your protein goals. But ideally, you should always consume a balanced diet. Make sure you have your veggies, your fruits. Make sure you're getting your micronutrient. And further, the fact that you have to hit a specific amount of grams of protein every single day forces you to kind of be confined to a certain amount of food you should be eating. The type of food you should typically eat that contains a lot of proteins are typically healthy, but make sure you always eat your vegetables. Make sure you eat your fruits. Just make sure you get a balanced diet, right? It doesn't matter if you're on fat loss, you're maintaining your weight, or you're trying to gain weight. Always consume a balanced meal. With that being said, I have provided a ton of resources for different type of recipes that are macro friendly, meaning that they will fit into your calories and are high in protein, so you can hit your protein. And they're good foods. It's not like basic bland foods. It's like a healthier version of pizza, a healthier version of burgers. There's tons of desserts, cookies, brownies, and things like that. I would provide resources below. These are content creators that I watch and use myself in terms of their recipes, and they've been great. And so you can explore that, and plenty of recipes for you to start applying in the kitchen to start tracking your calories. Let's talk about a meal plan. I think dieting is extremely hard and it's extremely tedious, especially in the beginning since you're not used to it. And so creating a meal plan can be beneficial as it takes out the guessing game and the decision making on what you should eat. So what I recommend you guys doing is how many meals you're eating per day usually. I personally only eat 2 meals a day and 1 snack. I would pick 2 main meals that I would eat every single day. And so right now I am dieting for a competition. And so what I'm doing for breakfast, what I'm eating is a healthier version of an English McMuffin, which is made with turkey sausage, fat-free cheese, and an English muffin that's like 100 calories each. And I would have 2 of those with 2 kiwis. And every single day for breakfast, I would eat that exact same meal. For lunch or dinner, depending on the time, I would typically eat 3 chicken gyros, and that just consists of 500 grams of chicken, 3 pita breads, and 150 grams of non-fat Greek yogurt. And then for my snack, I typically have a lot of fruit, so that's typically maybe 1,000 grams of watermelon or 500 grams of pineapple, maybe about 2 mangoes, and then maybe some Oreos. As well, I've been experimenting with some type of protein dessert. Again, those dessert recipes I got from the content creators that I provide for you guys below. So what I want you guys to do is create your own meal plan. That way it makes your diet much more adherable, and you're taking out the guessing game and the decision making on what type of meals you should eat every single day. As well with MyFitnessPal, what you can do is save your meals. So when you log it in, all you have to do is look up that meal and click on it and put how many servings you want. So typically what my meals that I save are the English McMuffins. And then what I do is I'll put 2 servings in that, and it will automatically calculate how much I should weigh out my turkey sausage. And so the next day, all I have to do is look at my log and see how much I need to weigh out. If you're eating the same thing every day, you'll know how much to weigh out, and so it becomes easier and easier over time. So to create your own meal in MyFitnessPal, go ahead and go to the diary log, click add foods, and then from there click my meals, and then create a meal. From here, name your meal, and then click under meal items, or on the blue bottom here, you click add foods or add items to this meal. Look up the foods for that specific meal, and then add the exact measurement for 1 serving. Hit save, and then from there it's going to save under my meals. And so for example, if you look at my meals, I've saved a ton of meals in the past. And so for example, if I want to eat my chicken ranch pizza here, it already has all the ingredients and all the measurements that I typically use for that one specific pizza. And let's say I want to have 2 pizza that day. Boom, I can put in the number of servings as 2. I can hit the check button on the top right corner, and boom, it will input it to me onto the log depending on where you add it. So for breakfast, let's say add foods, lunch or dinner, right? Whatever. And then it'll put in the exact measurements for you. So for example, here the ranch dressing, it's at 160 milligrams or milliliters, sorry. And then I can just measure that and look at that. Again, that just makes it easier for me to adhere to the diet, and so I don't have to keep looking things up and try to guess how much I need. And that's it. And that's what's cool about MyFitnessPal. You can create meals, and so meal planning becomes a lot easier for you using the app. So let's say you've been extremely disciplined and you've been consistent and persistent with your diet, and you've seen a lot of progress in losing your weight. But then all of a sudden you see that your weekly weight has not changed from week to week. Recall how I talked about how your metabolism can adapt to your caloric deficit and you can no longer lose weight. And in order to start losing weight again, you must reduce your calories to further put yourself in a caloric deficit, which is why I recommend you guys do not go on a severe caloric deficit. So when you do stall, when you do plateau in weight loss, you have enough calories to play around with, enough room to play around with, so you can keep that dieting sustainable. If you do find your weight to stall, meaning if your previously weekly weight is the same as this current week, then I recommend you guys reducing your calories first by 100 calories. So if your caloric deficit was 2,100, you should be eating 2,000 calories from here on out. And then from there, track it, right? If you still aren't losing weight or losing a pound a week, reduce it by another 100 calories. And so generally, reducing your calories by 100 to 200 calories should put your body back into a caloric deficit and start losing weight again. Now, this is gonna suck as you're, eating less than you're already eating less, but I will provide some strategies and techniques, tips and tricks to kind of work around that. How long should you go on a diet for? Well, that depends on how much weight you want to lose. So, for example, if I'm aiming for a pound a week, which I recommend, again, everybody to do, and I want to lose 20 pounds, well, that's going to take at least 3 months worth of dieting. And that's assuming if you're losing a pound a week. Now, I mentioned that your first week, you will lose about 5 pounds, and that's generally water. And so let's take into account of that, right? So let's say you want to lose 20 pounds in total body weight, and the first week is 5 pounds off. So that means you have 15 pounds left to lose, which means that's an additional 15 weeks, or plus the first week, 16 weeks. Now that's shortened down about to 4 months. In my experience, your fat loss journey will be a lot more quicker than 20 weeks if you are trying to aim for 20 pounds. I haven't cut more than 20 pounds. I've cut maybe 20 to 25 pounds, so I don't have experience for prolonged diets. But again, you just stick with the caloric deficit. If you stale out, you keep lowering it. And I'm going to talk about if you are going to go through a much longer period of dieting, there are some strategies that you should implement in order to sustainably go on a prolonged deficit. Now, I'm going to talk about diet breaks. And what diet breaks is literally what it means is to take a break from your diet. Now, with that being said, it's not about completely cutting out everything you've been doing and just going back to your eating habits, right? We don't want to yo-yo diet. It means you're just going back on a caloric maintenance for about a week or 2. That's it. Now that you guys know what a diet break is, why should you incorporate a diet break? Diet breaks aren't for everybody, and it's generally only implemented if you're losing more than 20 pounds or you're going on a really prolonged diet. And the reason why you should incorporate diet breaks is because it gives your body a break for one, from dieting to kind of recoup itself. Number two, if you're going on a prolonged diet, you're gonna be mentally fatigued from dieting, right? You're gonna feel hungry, you're gonna feel moody a little bit, because you're depriving yourself from calories. And so by incorporating a diet break, it gives your body almost a vacation, your mind a vacation, so it can be ready to recharge when you continue your diet. I should also mention that for people who are doing prolonged fat loss, recall about the idea how your metabolism will adapt and slow down over time in a caloric deficit. This is especially important for people who are doing prolonged dieting because you have a longer period to lose the fat, and therefore your duration of fat loss gives your metabolism time to adapt. Hence, by doing a diet break, you can prevent your metabolism from slowing down too quickly, so you can go on a much more sustainable diet rather than cutting down so much calories to the point that you're depriving yourself of so much food that you can no longer be able to sustainably go on a diet. Going on maintenance for about a week or two, it gives your metabolism time to recover and kind of speeds back up, so when you resume your diet, you don't have to cut down your calories as fast, as quickly, as you need more time to lose the fat. Now that you guys know why you should incorporate a diet break, let's talk about how you should incorporate a diet break. Incorporating a diet break is super easy to do. All you have to do is eat at a caloric maintenance, your caloric maintenance, for about a week or two. Now this depends on how you're feeling, or if you want to prolong your diet a little bit longer, then I ideally push it to 2 weeks, right? If you're feeling okay and you just kind of want a break, then go ahead and do it for a week. And again, all you have to do is either recalculate your caloric maintenance at the current body weight you are at now, or just simply add about 500 calories back to your caloric deficit to eat at your caloric maintenance. I failed to mention when you should actually do a diet break if you want to do a diet break. So for example, if I want to lose 30 pounds, I would incorporate a diet break halfway through the diet, meaning I lost 15 pounds, I'll take a week or two on maintenance, then I'll go back to a caloric deficit for the remaining period of time that I need to lose the extra 15 pounds. Now, I want to advise you some strategies and some concepts for you to apply to make your dieting process a little bit easier. First concept I'm going to talk about is tracking your weekly calories. What are weekly calories? Well, essentially, it's literally the number of calories you eat within a week. So if your caloric deficit per day is 2,000 calories, then your weekly calories is 1,400. So why is weekly calories important? Well, like I mentioned, we're aiming to lose about 1 pound to 2 pounds per week. So if by the end of the week we are eating at our caloric weekly deficit, then we will lose the weight regardless. So what that does is that you can start configuring and customizing the number of calories you eat per day within the week, and as long as you eat within your caloric weekly deficit, you will lose the weight no matter what. So for a quick example, let's say you decide to fast every single Monday, you did not eat on Monday. Now you're net 1,200 calories, right? Instead, what you can do is then take that 2,000 calories that you skipped, right? Assuming, let's say your caloric deficit is 2,000 calories, you can put that on top of Tuesday instead. Now you're eating 4,000 calories on Tuesday, and then for the rest of the week you're eating 2,000 calories. But because your weekly caloric deficit is still the same, it still adds up to 1,400, you will lose the weight. Now this is great because now you can start adding and subtracting calories from specific days, and as long as your weekly caloric deficit is the same, then you will lose the weight. To further illustrate my point, we're gonna jump over to the spreadsheet that I'm made for you guys, that I will obviously link below for you guys to explain this further. So to further illustrate my point here, what I want you guys to do is download the Google spreadsheet that I provided in the description below and follow me along. So the first thing I want you guys to do is enter your caloric deficit. So for this example, I'm using 2,000 calories as my caloric deficit every single day. So through Monday and Sunday, if I eat at 2,000 calories, I will lose 1 pound a week, right? Just for the example. With that, my total weekly calories would be 14,000, or on average 2,000 calories, right? So as long as I average out within the 7 days 2,000 calories, then I will lose the pound of weight. Now what's cool about this is that you can now start playing around with the number of calories. Again, we just need to make sure that our total weekly calories equals to 14,000 calories, or on average 2,000 calories, then I'll lose the weight. So I can probably eat, let's say 1,500 here, 1,500 here, and let's say Wednesday I want to splurge a little bit, let's eat 3,000 here, and for the rest of the day I already feel, or the rest of the week I feel kind of satiated, so I'm just going to go back to 2,000 calories here. And boom. Now look, our weekly total still comes out to 14,000, and on average it's still 2,000 calories. But I get to eat a little bit more on Wednesday because I was able to sacrifice 500 calories from Monday and Tuesday. Now you can see the power of this is that you can maybe, let's say you're going out on the weekends to eat with friends and you want to splurge a little bit. Let's say you have 4,000 calories here. Okay, well, you're 2,000 calories above. What can you do? Well, let's see. Wednesday, let's bring it back to 2,000 calories. No, that's 1,000 calories less, right? We need to get it to 14. So what can we do here? Let's say we're going to eat, let's see, 1,500 for the next 4 days. And boom. Now, if you eat 1,500 for the next 4 days and then 2,000 calories on Friday and Saturday, you get to eat 4,000 calories on Sunday. But because your total weekly calories is still 14,000 and on average you're still eating 2,000 calories, you will lose weight. This is the magic of the weekly calories, right? As long as you eat within your weekly calories every single week, you will lose weight. It doesn't matter how you delegate these calories, you will always lose weight, right? So let's say, you know what, you want to fast for 1 day. Boom, now you just freed up 1,500 calories. And on Sunday, you know, screw it, you're going hard, right? You're going to Cheesecake Factory. Boom, now you can eat 5,500 calories on Sunday because you were able to sacrifice a day of fasting here on Monday. Eat 1,500 on Tuesday, 1,500 on Wednesday, 1,500 on Thursday, 2,000 on Friday, 2,000 on Saturday, and 5,500 on Sunday. But because your weekly total calories is still 14,000 and on average you're still eating 2,000 calories, you will lose weight. One thing I also want to mention with using weekly calories is if you are weight training or if you working out, you can delegate more calories on the day that you work out, right? Because if you're working out, you will require more energy and therefore you get to eat more. Or if you're a powerlifter like me, what I like to do is if I have a heavy squat or a heavy deadlift the next day, I will eat a lot more on the previous day so I can have more energy for the following day when I do hit a heavy lift. Now you can properly implement proper cheat days. What people get wrong about cheat meals or cheat days is that they'll diet for the rest of the week, right? And then on Sunday they'll splurge. But because they don't know the proper number of calories to eat that day, they just splurge and go over their weekly caloric deficit, and therefore they either don't lose the weight or they end up gaining more weight than they initially have. And so it's important that you do proper cheat days, and the only way for you to do a proper cheat day is through a weekly calorie deficit. Now this course is mainly about fat loss and dieting, and I didn't really want to include any type of exercise or anything like that, but I did want to include cardio. And the reason why I want to include cardio in this class is because you can utilize cardio to kind of help you put you back on track. And what I mean by that, let's say you overeat that day by 200 calories. You can probably jump on the treadmill, walk for 30 minutes at like extremely high incline at 3 speed, for example, for 30 minutes, and you should burn about roughly 200 calories, right? And that should set you back to your caloric deficit instead of worrying about, subtracting 200 calories from the next day. And so in that way, you can utilize cardio to burn the calories that you overconsume on a specific day to bring you back on track. With that being said, I do highly recommend you guys at least train 4 times a week. By training 4 times a week, your activity factor goes up and therefore your calories goes up and you get to eat more. And by eating more on a diet, your dieting experience is going to become much more enjoyable, much more sustainable. If you're not at least working out, it's gonna make your calories a lot lower than it needs to be. And so going into the diet might be a lot harder for you. And so I highly recommend you incorporate some form of activity, bare minimum at least 3 times a week, ideally 4 to 5 times a week. Now, I include intermittent fasting in this course because I want you guys to utilize it as a tool just like cardio. Meaning, for example, if you guys are a big eater and you maybe on a lower calories and you're not used to eating lower calories, what you can do, right? Instead of eating your traditional, for example, 3 meals a day, what you can do is skip breakfast, right? That's intermittent fasting, generally skipping breakfast. And then you can then combine that calories that you didn't eat for breakfast onto your lunch or dinner, right? And by doing so, you have more volume of food to eat. And so, again, it makes the diet much more sustainable and much more enjoyable to go on as you're able to consume more food, right? The more calories you have to play around with, the more food you can consume. Compared to if you were to spread out your meals, 3 meals a day or 4 meals a day, you end up having to allocating a small amount of calories per meal, right? And that may not be enjoyable for you, right? For me, for example, I'm a big eater, and so I like a lot of volume. And so I tend to skip my meals or push my meals as far as I possibly can so I can have a bigger volume amount of calories to consume in one sitting. And by doing so, I feel much more full. I'm willing to stick with the diet for the long term. And so if you want to incorporate intermittent fasting, again, fasting is not meant to use to lose fat, but rather a tool to help aid in the process of dieting. And so if you want to start intermittent fasting, I would say skip breakfast or don't eat anything, just drink water or a coffee. Or consume anything 0 calories. You can consume anything 0 calories 6 hours after you have waken up. Then you can eat your first meal. Meaning, for example, if I wake up at 6 a.m. every single day, I don't get to eat anything in terms of calories until 12 p.m. Right? And that's just pushing my meal further. And by pushing your meal further, you, again, like I mentioned before, you're condensing the number of calories you have in one meal so you can eat much more. Now, what you can do is prolonged fasting. I do have a course on how to safely and effectively do prolonged fasting, and I don't recommend everyone to do this. Please do this at your own risk. Talk to your doctor, do all that before you embark on this journey. But what you can do is skip maybe a day or even 2 days of not eating and just go into a prolonged fast. And because you're skipping 2 days, right? Same concept with the weekly caloric deficit. What you can do is then take those 2 days that you didn't eat and add it onto the other week or add it on a specific day within the week, and you would still be able to lose the 1 pound a week or 2 pounds a week, whatever your caloric deficit is. And the advantageous of that is because you're skipping 2 full days, you have a lot of calories to play around with to put on the other days. So now your other days have increased a lot more, and so you're suffering for 2 days, but you get to enjoy the next 4 days with much more food. And now I'm going to talk about some eating out tips. Now, I wanted to include this is because we all want to go out to eat with friends, for families and things like that. And I didn't want you guys to kind of like restrict yourself and feel like you're being left out in a lot of things. Because again, this dieting thing is about something that is sustainable, something that can fit into your lifestyle, something that you can do forever, right? Generally, just use the weekly calorie deficit concept, and you should be okay, right? So if you know you're going out to eat with friends on a weekend, maybe you should put more calories on those days and just eat less throughout the week so you can eat more on the weekends. A trick I like to do is just generally skipping breakfast and lunch, right? If I'm going out to eat with friends, for example, that day or that night, I would skip breakfast or lunch, and then I would have my whole entire daily caloric intake for that day all in one meal. And that way I'm not stressed about, how much calories are in this specific food or if I'm eating this much. Like I said, when you start tracking your calories and start weighing out your food, you'll know what type of food have what type of calories. And so when you go out to eat, you can have an intuition almost for how many calories are in foods. And sometimes menus have the calories on it, so you can just kind of base it on that as well. But when you go out to eat, you don't want to kind of like restrict yourself from eating healthier or like eating less, whatnot, right? So just condense your calories in one meal and you should be okay. Now let's talk about supplements, everybody's favorite topic. I don't recommend you guys using supplement as a mean to lose fat. Again, this all comes down to your caloric intake. If you're in a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. Do not rely on supplements to help you do that. With that being said, supplements are meant to supplement in things that you cannot get on a daily basis. So for example, a lot of people talk about whey protein. Do not use whey protein as a mean to get into your proteins. Get protein from whole foods, from your chicken, your steak, your pork, your beef, whatever, right? Only use whey protein to supplement in if you haven't able to hit your protein goal. And since, I recommend you guys do go on a much more higher protein intake, then yes, whey protein is ideal for you guys. Maybe a scoop or 2 a day to help you hit your protein goals. The next supplement I recommend is vitamin D3. This is generally a vitamin that everybody, the whole entire globe, is deficient in. And so, I'll provide some research papers on that if you guys are interested. But vitamin D3 is really good. There has been a lot of literature and research on how the deficiency of vitamin D is linked to the fatality of COVID-19 patients. The next supplement I recommend is caffeine. You can get through this through coffee, tea, or taking a caffeine pill. I personally take a caffeine pill maybe like 30 minutes, an hour before my workout. But in terms of fat loss, it's not really that helpful. I'm just giving you guys a list of what I use. And the next supplement I recommend, if you're weight training, then I recommend you guys take creatine, especially during a weight loss period, as it can help you have more energy in the gym. And it does this as creatine helps produce ATP in your muscle, which is energy. So therefore you have a little bit more energy in the gym, especially when you're on a caloric deficit, you might feel a little bit weaker. Now, in the beginning of the class, I've kind of bashed on yo-yo dieting and most dieting and how people would go on a diet, go back to their old eating habits, gain back the fat, and the consequence of doing that. So your next question may be, Darath, what is the diet after the diet? What should I do after I finish dieting? It's super simple. All you have to do is recalculate your caloric maintenance, right? Go back to the video, I'll show you guys how to do that with your new body weight and eat at that caloric maintenance. And what that's gonna do is gonna help you maintain that body weight forever, right? If you eat that caloric maintenance, you would not gain or lose weight. And so you will keep that fat off forever. And what's amazing is that because you're off the caloric deficit, you get to eat a little bit more. And now that you have all these concepts and ideas, you can start playing around with calories. And so now you can eat much more volume of food and enjoy being sexy. Okay, so for your homework, what I want you guys to do is download the spreadsheet of the weekly calories, enter that in, and follow the instructions I showed you guys in the video. Next is make sure you have a food scale and a weight scale. If you don't have any, buy them from the link I linked below. Those are what I recommend. And then finally, post your progress, show your before and after so it can inspire others to keep pushing if they're in the journey or in the mid of their diet. I also want to see them personally, so make sure you guys post your progress and show everybody your transformation. And again, just be proud of what you accomplished. So show everybody, show the world what you're capable of and what you have done through tracking your calories. Okay, we have come to the conclusion of the class. I hope you guys learn a lot about dieting and how to actually properly diet, how to track your calories, how to calculate your caloric maintenance, and all that jazz. I hope you guys give this a try. Again, please post your progress photos. I am dying to see them. I want to see you guys transform and live a much happier, confident, sexier life, and most importantly, a much more sustainable lifestyle, and keep that fat off forever. If you have any questions, please do not be shy to leave them in the comments. I will reply to them as fast as I possibly can. If you enjoy the class, please leave a review. Give this a good rating. If you know someone who wants to lose weight and don't know how to properly do it, or you've seen someone who's gone on diets and failed multiple times, send them over to this course, teach them, and I'll be happy to bring them onto this journey as well. Thank you guys for watching this course. Again, all the resources, everything that I mentioned in the video, links and extra resources, papers, literature, everything I will link in the description below. So make sure you guys check those out and utilize them. Hope you guys have a beautiful transformation. I hope you guys have a beautiful life. I hope your family, your friends, and yourself stay healthy. Peace.